My name is Ellie. I'm 31 years old, live in Seattle, and I build things most people don't understand, especially not my family. On paper, I'm the founder and CEO of a fraud detection AI startup that just closed Series C funding at a $230 million valuation. We detect synthetic identities in banking systems, basically. I catch liars for a living. Funny, considering how many I've had to deal with in my personal life. But back home, in the eyes of my family, I'm still just the quiet one. I grew up in a house where love came with rankings. Rachel, my older sister, has always been first. She was the one with the tiaras, the medals, the boyfriends who drove shiny cars and called my mom Mom. She was prom queen, graduated with perfect curls and even more perfect teeth, and married a guy whose family owns 5 car dealerships in Oregon. She posts family photos in matching outfits every holiday, like it's a Hallmark ad. People gush over her Instagram. My mother calls her our pride. I'm the one they forget to tag. My dad's a retired Marine colonel, tall, loud, and allergic to anything that doesn't fit inside a chain of command. When I told him at 24 that I was starting a fintech company, he raised an eyebrow and said, "So, like PayPal?" Then he shook his head and told me to get a real job. "You're not Rachel," he added. "You can't just look good and expect the world to give you things." They didn't know that the first version of my product caught a $6, $2 million scam at a mid-sized credit union and saved them from collapse, or that I was working 18-hour days, coding in the bathroom between investor calls because my roommate blasted EDM in the living room. They didn't ask. I paid off my parents' mortgage 3 years ago, $320. $, wired directly from my savings. When Mum got sick last winter, I covered the $48 in out-of-pocket hospital bills so they wouldn't have to take out a second loan. I told them it was just a gift. They thanked me once over a stiff group text, like I'd bought them socks. Dad still introduces me as our youngest, the one in computers or something. I never did any of it to be seen. At least, that's what I told myself. But lately, I wonder. Every time there's a wedding, a reunion, a dinner where family only means everyone but me, it scrapes at something raw. I used to joke that I'm like the IT guy of the family, only remembered when something's broken, and blamed when no one understands how things work. But it's not funny anymore. This time, it wasn't a small slight. This time, it was Mom's 60th birthday, the one she'd been planning since she turned 59, the one I helped budget in January. And this time, they didn't even bother to lie to me. They just said, "Don't come." And I didn't. But someone else did. Someone who looked right at me days later and said something that changed everything. He called me boss. And I don't think my family's ever recovered from that moment. I should have known something was off when my brother Sam's wedding planner never asked for my meal choice. 3 weeks before the big day, I got a generic email from the caterer requesting RSVPs from guests of Rachel and Jason only. My name wasn't even in the system. I texted Sam, and he replied 2 hours later. "Sorry. L. Budget got tight. It's just immediate family plus bridal party now. Hope you understand." I stared at the message like it might morph into something kinder. This wasn't a budget issue. I'd offered months ago to contribute. Sam laughed it off at the time, saying, "Nah, we've got it. Rachel's covering the decorations, and Jason's parents are footing the venue. It's all handled." Apparently, I wasn't part of we. The wedding took place at a vineyard in Napa Valley, a 5-star estate with a private chef and curated wine pairings. I found out later that the event cost over $280. There were 137 guests, imported orchids, a string quartet flown in from New York. The party favors alone, hand-poured candles in gold foil tins were $40 each. I wasn't invited. What burned wasn't just the exclusion. It was the lie they wrapped it in. The tight budget excuse. They didn't want me there. Not the real me, the version who might not match their aesthetic. who doesn't look perfect in photos or say the right things at cocktail hour. Not the Ellie who built her own business instead of marrying into someone else's. I watched it all unfold on Instagram. Rachel posted a video from the reception, twirling in a blush silk gown that had probably cost more than my car. In the background, Sam toasted their late grandfather, quoting him about family being everything. Mom was crying. Dad looked proud. They were all there, Rachel. Her new boyfriend, Alex. Even second cousins I hadn't seen since I was 10. I wasn't even sent a live stream link. What they didn't know was that 3 months before the wedding, I wired $25,000 into Sam's business account to cover a manufacturing delay he was panicking about. He owns a boutique candle company. Ironically, I told him it was a loan. 0 interest. No rush. He never paid it back. Never mentioned it again. I didn't even get a thank you card. Then came Mom's 60th, the nail in the coffin. I got the text 2 days before the party. Just immediate family and close friends. Please don't make it awkward. Ellie. It was from Dad. No explanation. No soft landing. Just a hard wall. And silence from everyone else. I didn't reply. That night, I made chamomile tea and sat on my balcony, scrolling aimlessly. That's when I saw it. A friend of Rachel's had posted a story from the event. The backyard was lit with hanging lanterns. A live jazz band played beneath the marquee. The tables were set with white linens and gold chargers. My mother sat at the head, glowing in a navy blue dress I had picked out with her 3 months prior at Nordstrom. I was stunned. I had helped plan this. I was the one who suggested the caterer. I'd been the one who covered the deposit for the tent rental $4. $800 under my LLC because they needed someone with business insurance. And still, they had the audacity to tell me not to make it awkward. But the part that shattered me wasn't any of that. It came 2 days later. Monday morning, Nisnan 42 AM. I walked into our downtown office for a meeting with a potential investor. My co-founder Josh had set it up a small VC team from San Francisco. They'd reviewed our numbers and were interested in our expansion into Southeast Asia. I walked into the conference room with my laptop, and there he was, Alex, Rachel's boyfriend. He stood up, clearly caught off guard. His suit was too crisp, too new. He was fumbling with his pen when our eyes met. Then he just stared. "Wait," he stammered. "You're Ellie?" I didn't answer. He blinked, laughed nervously, then said, "Oh my God, you're the boss." The room went quiet. I nodded once. Yes, let's get started. And just like that, the ground shifted. For the first time, someone from my family's curated little circle saw who I really was. Not the forgotten sister, not the backup plan, not the quiet tech nerd they kept off camera. I was the one running the show. But even then, even in that moment, a small voice in my head whispered, "And still, they didn't want you there." And that hurt worse than anything Alex could have said. I didn't cry. Not then. Not after the wedding snub. Not after the birthday exclusion. Not even after Alex called me boss like he'd just discovered fire. Instead, I shut down, silently, efficiently, the way I've learned to do since I was old enough to understand that being emotional in my family only got you labeled dramatic. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't send angry texts or make a phone call demanding answers. I didn't ask my mother why she didn't fight for me to be there. I didn't give Rachel the chance to play innocent. I just went quiet. That night, I logged into my bank's dashboard, under scheduled transfers. I clicked the one labeled Family Support Parents. It was a $5,000 monthly auto deposit I had been sending for over 2 years. I set it up after Dad's pension got cut and Mum's arthritis got worse, covering things like their HOA fees, groceries, and my dad's golf club membership, which, for someone who claimed to be barely getting by, he sure managed to keep paying on time. I stared at the number for a moment. $5,000. Multiply that by 24 months. $120, $1,000, quietly, without fanfare, without so much as a birthday card in return. I hovered over the cancel button. Then I clicked it. Done. No confirmation email. No thank you. No goodbye. A strange mix of guilt and relief surged through me. Guilt, because part of me, the part still conditioned to please, to fix, wondered if I'd just become heartless. Relief, because maybe I was finally drawing a line, a boundary. And yet, it felt like cutting off a limb, not because they'd earned my help, but because I'd spent years convincing myself that giving was the only way they might eventually see me. I closed the laptop and left my condo. I didn't take my phone. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just walked, down through Fremont, across the bridge, and all the way to Gasworks Park. It was nearly dark by the time I got there. The city lights glittered across the lake, reflections bending and breaking, like my thoughts. I sat on a bench overlooking the skyline and let the silence fill the space where their voices used to echo. And I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. My 13th birthday. It was a Saturday. I'd spent all morning baking my own cake lemon with cream cheese frosting. Rachel had a cheerleading tournament and Mom was out of town. Dad forgot it was my birthday until the doorbell rang and one of the neighbor kids handed me a card. Inside was a $20 bill and a note, "Happy birthday. Rachel." He'd written the wrong name. When I showed him, he just laughed. "You girls confuse me sometimes," he said. No apology, just a shrug. Like it was nothing. I still have that card, tucked somewhere in a box I haven't opened in years. That was the first time I realized being invisible hurt worse than being disliked. And still, I tried. I got straight A's. I won the science fair 3 years in a row. I built a working weather balloon in 10th grade. My parents came to the football games for Rachel, but never to my robotics competitions. When I got accepted into MIT on a full ride, Dad said, "That's nice, but what job do you get with that?" So I stopped telling them things. I built my company in silence. I funded my first prototype by freelancing at night and eating canned soup for 6 months. When we landed our first institutional investor, I didn't tell them. When I bought my condo in cash, I didn't say a word. I just kept giving money, time, effort, hoping it would one day translate into love. But sitting in that park, I asked myself something I had avoided for years. Why did I keep buying their love? Was I trying to prove I mattered, trying to win some unspoken game where Rachel always started 10 steps ahead? Or was I just afraid that without the giving, there'd be no relationship left? The truth scraped at me. Maybe they never really saw me, only what I could give. A wave of nausea rolled through me as that thought settled. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe they loved me for me. But the evidence, the weddings, the birthdays, the forgotten meals and ghosted messages, it all pointed to the same conclusion. Love, in our house, came with conditions. Rachel met theirs. I didn't. And yet, I wasn't sure who I was without that role. The provider, the helper, the one who never asked for anything. What happens when you stop playing the part they assigned you? I left the park when the sky turned indigo and the wind picked up. No one called. No one texted to ask where I was. Not that night, not the next. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase their silence with explanations or apologies. I let it be quiet. The boardroom smelled like fresh coffee and quiet ambition. Our Series C presentation had already been through 2 major rounds, and this meeting, a private strategy session with Haven Capital's West Coast team, was supposed to be final touches, just a 90-minute Q&A before term sheets were finalized. My job was to sit tall, sound sharper than anyone else in the room, and let the money come in. I didn't expect him to be there. Alex walked in behind their lead partner, carrying a leather portfolio and trying not to make eye contact. He was clean-shaven this time. Less vineyard boyfriend, more junior investment analyst. The transformation almost worked until his eyes met mine and widened with a kind of slow, horrified recognition. He whispered, "Oh, shh," but caught himself mid-word. The room turned. I didn't flinch. Everyone said their VP, smiling. "This is Alex Chen, one of our new team members. He'll be shadowing some of our deals this quarter." Alex gave a clipped nod, looking forward to learning from the best. I looked straight at him. "Then take notes." The room chuckled. I smiled like it was a joke, but inside, something cold and sharp clicked into place. We began the presentation. Josh walked through revenue projections, and I handled platform scalability. Questions flew fast churn rate, fraud case benchmarks, overseas compliance. I hit every answer with calm precision. When the talk turned to risk models, Alex raised his hand. "Ellie," he said slowly, "how did your team detect the double-layer shell companies in the Bangkok case? Most firms would have missed that." That's when I realized he'd done his homework. I leaned forward. "We didn't look at the documents. We looked at the silence dormant IP activity, metadata lag, patterns people overlook when they only look for lies, not absences." He nodded. "That's clever." "She's the most ruthless operator we've seen in this round," their VP added, half joking. I smiled, but inside, my heart was racing. Because in that moment, I could feel it, the shift, the acknowledgement, not from Alex, from the room, from the world that had always seemed to recognize my work more than my family ever did. When the meeting wrapped, we lingered by the espresso bar in the hallway. Alex approached, cautious. "Hey," he said, voice low. "That was honestly impressive." "Thanks." He hesitated, then added, "Your dad, he talked about you at the party. A little." I turned to him. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. He told this long story about how he built a life from nothing, how he worked 3 jobs, paid off the house, how he refused help from anyone, said it was a matter of pride. I laughed, not kindly. Alex frowned. It didn't add up, not after today. "Because it's fiction." He looked embarrassed. "I didn't know it was your money keeping them afloat." I looked him in the eye. Most people don't. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, he said, "They don't deserve you." That landed heavier than I expected. After he left, something in me snapped into place. The invisible thread I'd held onto all these years, the desperate hope for acknowledgement, finally broke. But what came next surprised me more than the silence. It started with an article. 2 days later, TechCrunch published a piece about the upcoming acquisition talks between our firm and a fintech giant in Singapore. Rumors leaked a potential all-cash buyout, expected to value us at just over $300 million. I didn't issue a comment, but someone else did. A former intern tweeted, "If Ellie Tran exits with even a quarter of what I think she will, it's a masterclass in building without anyone noticing. Ruthless, brilliant, quiet power." The tweet went viral in startup circles. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded congratulatory emails, speaking offers, even a request from Forbes for a profile piece titled "The Silent Force Behind Fraud Tech." Rachel texted first. "Rachel, hey, a long time. Haha, heard some wild news. True would love to catch up." I didn't reply. Then Mom left a voicemail. She sounded chipper, as if we hadn't gone months without speaking. "Hi, honey. Just checking in. We've been meaning to call. We saw something online. Very proud of you. Your father says you're making waves. Call us when you get a chance." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I got a call from Sam. "Hey, so I was thinking," he began, awkwardly. "If this whole acquisition thing goes through, we should probably do a family dinner or something. Just us. Celebrate properly." "You mean the family that uninvited me from their celebrations?" I said flatly. There was a pause. Then come on. Elle, don't be like that. I hung up. For the first time in my life, they wanted me at the table, not because they'd changed, but because the numbers had. They saw dollar signs now. That was the difference. Not love, not regret. Just math. I walked into my office, shut the door, and sat down at my desk. I opened a folder I'd been building quietly for months, titled Exit Strategy. It contained everything I'd need to walk away clean. No press tours, no investor vanity pieces, just a payout, a handover plan, and a new chapter waiting. And maybe, just maybe, peace. But before I could close the laptop, a memory surfaced. My dad, years ago, sitting in the backyard with a beer, telling a neighbor, "Ellie's the brainy one, but she's not like Rachel, doesn't really get people." He didn't know I was listening. He never knew how much I did get, how much I saw. I see it all now, the pride, the performance, the painful need to be someone they could parade, not someone they could understand. And I'm done asking for space in rooms I helped build. The house looked the same. It always did. The trimmed hedges, the wreath on the door no matter the season, the porch light flickering faintly even in daylight. It was clean, controlled, stuck in time, like the people inside it. I hadn't been back in nearly 8 months, not since the wedding, not since the birthday, not since the silence. I didn't text before coming. I wanted to see what happened when they didn't have time to rehearse. Dad answered the door. He blinked once, surprise flickering across his face before it vanished under the usual armor. He stepped aside without a word. "Hey," I said. "Ellie." His voice was clipped, not warm, not cold, just cautious. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and roast chicken, familiar and distant all at once. Mom was in the kitchen, chopping carrots like it was any other Tuesday. She looked up. "Oh, I didn't know you were coming by." I didn't bother smiling. I figured I'd stop waiting for an invitation. Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite regret. Rachel and Sam were already seated at the table when I walked in, Rachel in a designer sweater. Sam looking tired. I caught him glancing at his phone, then quickly pocketing it when he saw me. No one said anything. I sat. The clink of utensils filled the silence until my father cleared his throat. "Chicken, okay," he asked. "Sure," I said. "Let's not pretend this is about chicken." Forks paused mid-air. I looked around the table. "I'm going to say some things. You don't have to like them. You just need to hear them." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Oh God. Here we go." I raised a hand. "Don't. Not this time." She scoffed but fell silent. I turned to Mom first. "I paid for the tent at your birthday. I helped pick your dress. I sent you recipes for the menu. And then I was told not to come. Not even a lie to cushion it. Just stay away." Her face crumpled slightly, but she didn't speak. Then I turned to Sam. "You told me your business would collapse without that $25. I sent it without a contract, without a timeline. You paid for a vineyard wedding, Sam, and I watched it from someone else's phone." He stared down at his plate. No defense, just shame. Finally, I looked at my father. "And you? You stood in front of a group of people and told them you built this life alone, that you refused help, while I was paying your mortgage and your club dues." "Ellie," he began, "that's not—" I cut in, calm but steady. "I'm no longer your emergency fund. I'm your daughter, or I'm nothing. You choose." The room went still. Rachel snapped first. "We never asked you to." I turned to her. "Exactly. You never had to. You just let me bleed for this family while you basked in the spotlight." Her face flushed red. "You think throwing money around makes you better than us." "No," I said. I think sacrificing silently for people who never ask how you're doing doesn't make me better, but it sure as hell means I deserve better. Sam tried to interject. Ellie, we didn't mean to make you feel. This isn't about feelings, I said. This is about patterns. You use me, then pretend you didn't ask, and I've allowed it, for years. Mom finally spoke, voice trembling. Sweetheart, we didn't realize. No, I said, more gently this time. You didn't want to. I stood, heart pounding. I'm not here for an apology. I just need you to understand what comes next. They watched me, warily. There's a deal closing soon, I said. I'm not going to share numbers, but after it's done, I'm stepping back from everything, from the role I've been forced into. Ellie, Dad said, you can't just walk away from family. I met his eyes. If you ever speak to me about loyalty again, remember who showed up every time, who paid, who stayed quiet. Remember who bled for this family while you told stories about your pride. The silence that followed was different than before, not passive heavy, real. Rachel looked like she wanted to say something but didn't. Sam sat frozen. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she held her napkin. My father didn't speak. He just nodded once stiff, proud, broken in a way I had never seen before. I picked up my coat. This isn't anger. It's clarity. I won't scream. I won't plead. I just won't participate anymore in the illusion that this is okay. At the door, I paused. If you ever want to know me, really know me, start with asking why I had to come here and say this at all. I left. No one followed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want them to. I didn't wait for an apology. I didn't hold my breath for a moment of reckoning or redemption. No tears were shed. No dramatic hugs exchanged. I didn't need that anymore. A month after the acquisition closed, I bought a cabin on Orcas Island. Not a fancy estate or a luxury retreat. Just a small, crooked-roofed place tucked between tall pines and stubborn moss, where the air smelled like salt and pine needles and something softer I couldn't name. The Wi-Fi was unreliable, which I counted as a blessing. There's no doorman, no curated wine fridge, no calendar full of meetings that double as battlegrounds. There's just me. Some mornings, I walk barefoot across the deck with a mug of black coffee and watch the clouds roll over the sound like slow-moving ghosts. Other days, I hike for hours, letting my legs ache and my lungs stretch in a way that reminds me I'm alive, not productive, not impressive, just alive. I write, nothing for publication, just pages and pages in a brown leather journal. I write about the silence, about money, and how it made me powerful in rooms where I used to feel small, but how it never quite filled the places where love was supposed to go. I write about the guilt, about the years I spent trying to be useful instead of honest, about the way I bent myself into someone they might praise, only to realize they never looked up. One night, after too much red wine and a long walk under fir trees, I wrote something in my journal that made my hands shake. They only saw me when I became valuable. What does that say about them? What does it say about me for needing to be seen? That question still haunts me. I used to think that love meant giving until it hurt, that being good meant being generous, quiet, and invisible until someone decided I was worth remembering. But I see now how that belief rotted me from the inside. I see how it kept me playing a role that looked like strength but felt like servitude. I was never their daughter. Not really. I was a resource, a reputation booster, an optional guest, a walking ATM. And the hardest part, I let it happen. I paid for access to love that should have been mine for free. But not anymore. I don't check Rachel's posts. I don't answer Sam's vague texts. I've stopped translating their silence into something softer. I no longer send birthday gifts or last-minute wires to cover surprise bills. I don't show up where I'm not welcome. I don't explain myself to people who only listen when there's money attached. I live smaller now, quieter, but more honestly. Some evenings, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine and watch the tide come in. I listen to the birds argue in the trees and the wind teasing the chimes by the door. And for once, I don't feel like I'm waiting for something, not praise, not recognition, not permission. I'm just here, breathing, being. And if you're reading this, if any of this feels familiar, I want to ask you something. How much of yourself have you given away just to be accepted by people who never saw your worth? At what point do you stop proving and start living?